How's it going, everybody? CJ here, back with another video. We're going to be talking about some card spikes again. We've got a lot of movement in the market, and some of it is contributed to the fact that Wizards has just taken over the Commander format. They are now running the ban list, and so there's a lot of speculation about cards potentially being unbanned. So a lot of the cards I'll be talking about today are cards that have the potential to be unbanned. Before we hop into this though, remember, subscribe if you haven't already. Alright, let's hop into this. We're going to start off with those cards that may or may not get unbanned now that Wizards has control of the Commander format. We saw a lot of movement on a handful of cards. The first one I want to mention is Tolarian Academy. I don't think this is going to get unbanned. I think it's kind of crazy that people think this might get unbanned, but people are buying it. I will note that some of the prices under these older cards that you see here aren't 100% accurate. And that's really just due to the fact that the method that I'm using to get my information is including damaged and heavily played cards at the moment. However, for the next video, I have figured out a way to remove that. So that's no longer going to be a thing moving forward. This is going to be the last video that includes heavily played, damaged cards, and moderately played. Going forward, I'll only be using lightly played and near mint cards as my metrics. But Tolarian Academy is seeing a lot of movement. I don't think it should. This is not going to get unbanned. People think it will though. I don't know why. After that, we got Raphellos, another card that potentially could be unbanned. This one I see more likely, and I do like Raphellos, cool card. I'm going to kind of move through these a little quickly just because of the fact that the explanation is all they might get unbanned. There's Recurring Nightmare. This one I would love to see unbanned, but it is a very powerful card, so I could see it staying banned. Biorhythm, this one likely to be unbanned. I think there's a high chance that it is unbanned, so I think it's a good card to speculate on. Sway of the Stars, another card that's likely to be unbanned, but I don't think it's worth speculating on because no one's ever going to play this card. Coalition Victory, another one that I think is very likely to be unbanned and is definitely worth speculating on. Panoptic Mirror, cool card, would be a fun, weird combo card. I think it's probably going to be unbanned, so I think it's worth picking up. Sylvan Primordial, another one I think will be unbanned. It's so cheap right now, worth grabbing while you can. Primeval Titan, another one that I think will be unbanned, and this is another really cool one. I could see this getting very expensive if it is unbanned. And along with that, I could also see certain lands getting more expensive. If Primetime is unbanned, then Dark Depths I could see going up because of Dark Depths Thespian Stage combo. You can get both pieces. Field of the Dead I could see going up, along with Urborg and Cabal Coffers, because that's one of the best two combination of lands that you can grab inside Commander. So all of those lands could be worth speculating on. Paradox Engine, another card that is really cheap right now, I think could easily be unbanned. Would love to see this one unbanned. Gifts Ungiven, specifically this borderless one, is moving in the market. Not sure why it's just this one, but this is another card that I could see being unbanned. And lastly, Golos. Golos could easily be unbanned. Unbanned Golos, free Golos. Those are all the cards that I noted that are currently banned in Commander that after the announcement that Wizards is taking over the ban list and are planning on unbanning some cards, they saw movement because speculation that they'll be unbanned. Now let's move on to some other cards, just regular old cards that are moving in the market. Cavern Horde Dragon is still moving. The Showcase Scrolls is really selling out of the market, and it is seeing some price adjustment at this point. If you want a copy that's the Showcase Scroll version, you should buy it now because it's just going to keep getting more expensive as it sells out. I can see this price jumping. And the Extended Art version is also still selling out, and that price has not moved as much. We also saw a large drop inside the number of listings for Sorcerous Squall, Borderless, Surge foils. So this seems like it's another Lord of the Rings buyout potential card, but it's seeing a lot of movement right now, so you might want to pick one up now if you don't have one, if you want one. Then we have Machine God's Effigy. I love this card. It's such a nifty card. It's a 4-mana clone that's also a mana rock. Love it. It's really cool. And it's finally seeing some movement. I could see this card moving a bit in price because it is really good, and I think it's super underrated. Throne of Eldraine saw a pretty hefty decrease. This is an extremely powerful card, so if it does drain from the market and we don't get a reprint soon, this is going to be an expensive card. It's super strong. Another repeat offender with Hellish Rebuke continuing to drain from the market, big decreases on both the regular version and the extended art, especially the regular version down 35%, while the extended art only down 17%, but still a significant drop, especially because it keeps dropping week after week. And neither of them had big price changes, so there's still plenty of time to grab your copies before that price goes up. It will go up if this card continues to leave the market at this rate. Next one I was pretty surprised to see. Not really sure why, but Edgar Markov saw a big drop in listings. I think 35%. That's a strong swing, and I think this card's due for a reprint. I think there's a very likely chance this is reprinted in Innistrad Remastered. It would be perfect for the Chase Mythic of the set. So, I'm not sure why people are buying it right now. Amanatu the Fate Shifter's continuing to drop, another 34% down. This is a card that's really good inside of the new Amanatu Precon. It's good at dealing with miracle stuff because you're controlling the top of your library. It's a cool card too. After these most recent bans, there's a lot of changes in the CEDH meta. Certain commanders became less viable and certain commanders became more viable. One partner pairing that people are very excited about is Thrasios Tymna. We're seeing some movement on specifically Tymna because Tymna wasn't really being played as much as it used to be. Now it's seeing more play again, and we have back-to-back weeks of Tymna dropping in listings. Both versions, but the other version's not dropping as much as the foil etched. Emberwild Captain, the regular art version, is continuing to drop as well. I mentioned this last week. This is a great cube card. It's a really cool card in Commander. This card I could easily see becoming expensive, especially if it doesn't get a reprint at any time. Another card coming back for round 2, we have Soul Talisman. The retro frame foil etched is continuing to drain heavily from the market, and again, I'm not really sure why. I think that people are just kind of using this in place of their mana crypts. It saw another 37% decrease down to 39 listings. That's crazy, without much of a price difference too, so there's still time to buy a copy. Then we have Detectives Phoenix. Both the extended art and the regular are seeing a lot of movement. The extended art saw more movement this week, while the regular saw more movement last week, but they're both seeing a decent amount of movement. This week, the extended art dropped 34% in listings, while the regular dropped 18%. Prices haven't changed much, but I do know this card does see play in Vintage Cube. Maybe it's seeing play elsewhere. If anyone knows where this demand is coming from, please let me know. With those Marvel leaks, Excalibur jumped up in price. However, it's still draining from the market even though it jumped in price. People are buying this card at its new high price, and heavily. I think the price might continue to go up because this week the regular version had a 29% decrease in listings, while the extended art a 22% decrease. That's a lot of movement. This card is still draining out of the market even though its price already spiked. That just means it might go higher. So if you plan on building the Captain America deck from that leak, you might want to pick up your copy before it comes out and it's official, because this card's just going to keep draining, and it's not an easy one to reprint because it's from the Assassin's Creed Secret Lair. Next up, we have a really weird one. I have no idea why we're seeing as much movement in this card as we are. So maybe we see something coming out soon and it was insider trading. I have no idea why. Zuberi is moving so hard in the market. Last week, I almost decided to talk about it, but I was like, nah, it's probably just some weird fluky thing. It definitely didn't actually drain like this, and it's probably somebody taking listings off. But it being 2 weeks in a row, I wanted to mention it. An 18% drop this week, 22% drop last time I did this. This thing is moving out of the market, and it's a reserve list card, and it's very good with Griffins. So if we have any Griffin support coming, this is going to be moving. Actually, speaking of which, I didn't note it because it was not a huge movement, but Griffin Canyon also had a lot of listings dropping in the market. Griffin Canyon's movement wasn't enough to get on my radar. Like, it's not one that I would list normally because the numbers aren't that crazy. But the fact that both it and Zuberi, both being reserve list Griffin cards, saw a pretty substantial drop to what they would normally see over the last 5 days is a little interesting. We might be seeing something coming up. Maybe this is just a fluke, but looking at these numbers, I really kind of expect there to be some Griffin support coming in the future, and there's a little bit of insider trading. Kind of weird. Like, you don't see these cards just randomly start moving. After that, we had 3 copies of Lotus Bloom. This is being played in that blue Belcher deck in Modern, so that explains why this is dropping so much, and it's continuing to drop. Another 20%, 36%, and 36% decrease in volume. That's crazy. It almost mirrors the last time I did this, and that was a lot of volume change. Like, they're draining out of the market. If this deck continues to do well, these are going to be expensive. And the price is starting to creep up a little bit. There is starting to be a little bit of a price movement after all these listings are going out. Another grouping of cards that I called out last time that are continuing to drain out of the market are the Solfims. The Showcase had a 37% decrease this time around, 32% for the Step Incomplete. The regular had a 28% decrease, and the Oil Slick had a 22% decrease. All of the Solfims are continuing to drain from the market, so if you need a Solfim, you're running out of time. Now I want to mention a handful of cards that have already spiked in price, where it's too late to buy them, and these cards have gotten more expensive, and if you have them in your collection sitting around, you might want to pull them out. There's only 6 cards I want to talk about here, 5 of which I happen to have already called, either in the last video or the one prior to this. So, I'm doing a pretty good job with those. The one that I didn't call was Zozu the Punisher. I did notice it, but I didn't think that there was any real reason for it to be going up, and it just went crazy. I don't know why, but Zozu's super expensive now. The base version's like 20 bucks. After that, we have Jeweled Amulet. Saw another massive decrease in stock, down 56%. The pricing that you see down here though for Jeweled Amulet is obviously not 100% accurate. The reasoning for that is, like I mentioned before, the system that I'm using to figure out my metrics is still accounting for the damaged copies, and this is the price of a damaged copy. So going forward, that will be fixed. However, if you wanted to buy a lightly played or near mint copy of Jeweled Amulet right now, that would run you about $4. So it went from being worth very, very little to up to $4. So if you need one, there's still time to get one for not too expensive. $4 isn't crazy, but it's a pretty significant change in percentage of value. Moving on, we have Reign of Gore. I didn't mention it in the last video, but I mentioned it the one prior. That one has moved up a lot in price, and that's due to the Rakdos Precon. Up another $2 this time around, but it was a bulk rare before. Last week I mentioned Chandra Awakened Inferno, both versions of it. Figured this is going to be a card that's going to spike due to that same Precon. And would you look at it, I mentioned this last week when it was $2. Now it's $7 a piece. Hopefully if you needed a copy, you bought one when I mentioned it before. That same Precon's making an additional card spike. Another card that I mentioned last week was Roiling Vortex, Extended Art specifically. The Extended Art is now almost $10. Now I would not want to be buying one. When I mentioned it 5 days ago, it was under $4. But the biggest movement that we saw was the Zur the Eternal Schemer. I mentioned all 3 versions of this card. The most expensive one was $3 at the time, and that was a textured foil. Now if you want to get a copy, the cheapest one is $12, and it goes all the way up to $22. This card spiked so hard. So hopefully if you needed a copy, you had picked it up previously when I mentioned it before. That is everything I have for CJ Spicy Specs. Let me know what you think about the cards I talked about today, and let me know what you're putting your money into, and if there's anything that you're looking to buy. I'll see you next time. Peace out, everybody.